All right, in this video, we are going to review the steps for dividing a decimal number. We know that those steps are the same every time. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move the decimal in the divisor to the right in order to make it a whole number. The next thing I'll do is in the dividend, I'm going to move the decimal an equal number of times to the right. We say that division is all about fairness. Whatever I do to that divisor, I must do to the dividend. The third thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the decimal place straight up into the quotient. And then the fourth thing I'm going to do is I'm going to proceed with division as normal. And of course, those steps for long division are divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down. And those will be the steps that we will do as we will solve. So this example is taking a look at what to do if you have a decimal divisor. So if I have a number in my divisor that is a decimal, step one tells me that I'm going to move the decimal in the divisor to the right to make it a whole number. So in this case, I need to move it one time. When I move it one time, I get rid of my old decimal. And instead of being 1 2/10, now my number has become 12. The second thing I'm going to do is whatever I did to my divisor, I'm going to do to my dividend. So I moved my decimal one time here to the right. So therefore, I'm going to move it one time here to the right, get rid of my old decimal. Now that I have moved it in my divisor and I've moved it in my dividend, I'm going to go on to step 3 and I'm going to bring the decimal place straight up into the quotient, right between those numbers. Now that I have taken care of my decimal and my decimal is planted firmly in my quotient, where it's going to live, where it's going to stay, I'm going to proceed with division. Those steps of long division, I'm now going to do, thinking about this as 12. I've made a new number, now it is 12. I know that 12 can't go into 2, so I'm going to put a notation at the top to show that that can't happen. 12 can go into 25, however. It goes in 2 times. There's my divide. Now I move to my multiply. 2 times 12 gives me 24. Now I will subtract and bring down. Every time that I bring down, the process starts again and I come back to divide. 12 can go into 14. It goes in 1 time. There's my multiply. Here's my subtract. And here's my bring down. I brought down, so I start the process again. I come back to divide. 12 goes into 24 2 times. Now I multiply. 2 times 12 gives me 24. When I subtract, I find that there's no remainder. There's nothing to bring down, so the process ends. And I can clearly see that 2 and 544 thousandths, which was my initial dividend, divided by 1 2/10, gives me 2 and 12 hundredths as my quotient, or as my answer to my division problem. So taking a look at these numbers, I can see that this example was with a decimal divisor. But this is going to look a little different if instead of having a decimal divisor, I take these same numbers, but I think about it with a decimal dividend alone. Here, I'm starting with a divisor that's already a whole number. So step 1 is already taken care of. My divisor is already a whole number. There's no movement that needs to occur. So I go into step 2. Since I didn't move my decimal in my divisor, I don't move it in my dividend, I proceed to step 3. Step 1 and step 2 didn't happen because I didn't need to make any movement. I go to step 3. Wherever my decimal is in my dividend, I'm going to bring it straight up into the quotient. And then the numbers are going to stay the same as they did last time when I proceed with division. Let me change that rather. 12 can't go into 2, but 12 can go into 25 2 times. I multiply and get 24. I subtract 25 minus 24. I get a difference of 1. I bring down my 4. I start again. 12 goes into 14 1 time. 1 times 12 gives me 12. I subtract and get a difference of 2. I bring down my 4. I start again. 12 goes into 24 2 times. 2 times 12 gives me 24. When I subtract, I get a difference of 0. There's nothing to bring down, so here's my answer. When I divide with a decimal dividend and a whole number divisor, I don't have to move my decimals at all. I simply bring it up into my quotient. The last example I want to show is how this is going to look if you have a whole number dividend. So here, I took the same digits. I simply changed the location of my decimal to show how this is going to be slightly different than what we've already solved. My steps have remained the same the whole time, no matter what the digits were and no matter what the place value that my decimal sat in. So number one, I'm going to move the decimal in the divisor to the right to make it a whole number. This is the same process that I did in number one. I move it one time to the right. Now when I take a look here, I can see that this is a whole number. My decimal is not written, but it's understood to be at the end of the number because this sits in the ones place. So my decimal is right here. I still need to do step two. So I need to move the decimal an equal number of times to the right in the dividend. I'm going to move it one time to the right, and it's going to be right here. Now, I don't have anything sitting in that position, so I need to add a place value. That place value holder is going to be a 0. Now that I've moved my decimal, I'm simply going to bring it straight up, as step number 3 tells me to do. From here, again, it's the same division as we've done in the last two problems because I'm thinking about 12. 12 can't go into 2, but 12 can go into 25 2 times. 2 times 12 gave me 24. When I subtract, I get 1. Bring down my 4. Same steps that we've done. 12 goes into 14 one time. 1 times 12 gives me 12. 14 minus 12 gives me 2. And I bring down my 4. 12 goes into 24 2 times. 2 times 12 gives me 24. 24 divided by 24 gives me 0. And the difference here is I have something else to bring down. Since I have another digit to bring down, it's a 0, but I still must bring it down and put something above that 0 position. 12 goes into 0, of course, 0 times. I can complete this. 0 times 12 gives me 0. 0 minus 0 is nothing. And I see that there's no remainder. So here, my answer is that I have 2,544, that was my original dividend, divided by 1 2/10 gives me a quotient of 2,120.